Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I am so excited that you guys are here with me today. And if you've been following along, then you know that today is the start of our brand new season. So if you haven't been following along, a little quick update for you is that I decided at the beginning of 2023 to just do 2 seasons of the podcast and put some from the archives or older episodes out on the feed again. And that's what we've been doing this year. And so we wrapped up the first season of 2023 at the end of June and took a little summer break, and now we're back with another season that's going to take us through till the end of the year. And so I wanted to kick off the season by doing a little life update, let you guys know what I've been up to, both personally and professionally, answer a couple of questions that have kind of been showing up in one-on-one coaching calls I've been doing, as well as questions that I kind of had on my radar for a Q&A episode, and I thought it might just be fun to kind of put it together with this welcome back, kick off the season episode. And I'm going to leave you guys with some updates on what's to come in the upcoming season and all that good stuff. So lots of good stuff going on. I want to kick things off by talking about summer. So we wrapped things up at the end of June, like I said, and got everything ready to go for the From the Archives. And then I just went into pretty solid summer mode. Obviously, I wasn't offline, or maybe it's not obvious, but I have lots of things on the go. I have client work and stuff like that. So I wasn't completely offline, but was pretty offline from the podcast, which was really, really nice. Had a couple of months to just take it easy. And most of that time was spent in Canada. So if you guys know me or if you followed along, then you know I am originally from Western Canada and currently call Central Mexico home. And we've been pretty stably based in Central Mexico for the last almost 2 years, I guess, 1.5 to 2 years, in order for me to settle into my 3rd trimester of pregnancy. My daughter was born here, and now she is 1.5 years old. And so we've been here for that entire time. And it was really nice because we went back to Canada for 5 weeks. So we left Querétaro, Mexico, where we currently live, in the middle of July, and we came back the 3rd week of August. And it was really awesome because we got to bookend our trip with some really fun stuff. We kicked off our trip with a really fun friends weekend with 4 of my best girlfriends, plus their husbands and kids and all that type of stuff. So really, really fun reunion, really fun to be back in Canada to do that. And then we basically had 2.5 weeks with my parents, and then 2.5 weeks with my husband's parents. And we ended the trip with my mom's 60th birthday. So that was really fun. And I feel really lucky and blessed that I can kind of set up my life and my schedule in a way where I can take quite a bit of time offline and just be present for something like that. And so that's what I did. I was doing the things that needed to get done and, had some client calls and stuff like that. But for the most part was really just being present with family, friends, my daughter, all that type of thing. And now we're back in Mexico, settling back into life here, which has been really nice, getting ready to get into the fall season. My daughter's not in school yet, and I live in Mexico, so we don't have like a huge change in seasons quite yet. It'll happen in a couple of months, but it's been really nice to just settle into kind of quote unquote fall with a bit of a slower pace, not traveling as much, all that type of thing. We've got a couple months here before we head on our next big trip, which is going to be Argentina. So stay tuned for more updates about that on social media and my other podcast, The World Wanders. We're certainly going to be talking about that lots. But that's basically what I've been up to. Family, friends, taking some time away from the show. And I don't know if anyone is curious about this, but how I do recording. So when I do kind of these big trips that we've been doing quite a few of this year, I generally don't plan any podcast interviews just because it's a bit harder to coordinate with my daughter's schedule, not having scheduled childcare, my husband working, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, while the other season was still going, I was starting recording episodes for this season, and I've got the majority of them recorded, but I've got a number of interviews scheduled for the fall, which I'm really excited about. So kickstarted interviews just yesterday at the time of recording, actually, and getting back into a number of those. And then I'll also be starting to record for 2024, which is kind of crazy that we're at that point where we're already starting to talk about 2024, but here we are. I'm starting to do recordings for the next 2024 season, which at the end of this season, I'll give you more of an update about what to expect in 2024. But for now, let's focus on what we've got ahead of us because we've got lots of good stuff on the horizon. And so one of the first things that I kind of wanted to talk about in this episode was just how things have been going, how this new format has been going, how balancing motherhood and work has been going. And things have been good, I would say, but I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty tired. And part of the reason that I decided to, trim things back and do seasons this year was because I finished off 2022 pretty exhausted. I think I pushed myself pretty hard for the first, 10 months to a year of motherhood and just felt this strong need to pull back. I had been working with a number of yoga studios and I had pulled back on one of those when I went on maternity leave and have not returned to that. And then at the beginning of this year, I stepped away from the other studio that I was primarily working with. And it's really interesting because I feel like stepping away from those gigs really opened up some space in my schedule and in my life. And what I found is that some amazing people have come and stepped in and taken that time. So I've been working with some really incredible clients, and that's been really filling my bucket up in a way that I haven't been doing for the last couple of years. Towards the end of pregnancy, I stopped taking on one-on-one clients, and then I really didn't take on any clients probably until the start of this year. So I was basically not really working with clients for, let's say, about a year. And it's been really wonderful to kind of open up space in my schedule and see that space be filled with new clients. It's really amazing to see how different everyone's business is and yet some of the similar things that they're struggling with. So it's been really inspiring and amazing to support those people. And that's been really, really great. And I've loved being able to continue the podcast interviews and the podcast while also having time and space to work with people one-on-one. This is something that I've always struggled with, is like, what's most important to me? What do I have capacity for? And I have to be super, super particular about what I say yes to and what I say no to, just because I'm balancing motherhood on top of working. And I think I've talked about this in another episode, but I don't have full-time childcare. I only have part-time childcare. So I basically work part-time and then naps and after bed and stuff like that. And one of the things in this kind of chapter, this fall season, that I've really wanted to shift for myself is not working in the evenings. I really want to be shutting things down before my daughter goes to bed so I can really focus on myself, my self-care, kind of after she goes to bed, have some time for me rather than needing to give to other people. And I think one of the things that's hardest about showing up as a yoga teacher, showing up as a coach, and then showing up as a mother is that all of it is a lot of giving. And so what I'm finding is that I really need to find time and space to fill up my cup and really give to myself. And so that's been a lot of my focus over the last couple of months and doing some shifts for fall with that. And I'm looking forward to just seeing how that balance works in this new season. But I would say overall things are good. Tired. People keep telling me that I'll probably be tired until my daughter moves out of the house. So I'm just embracing that. And you know what? She's an amazing sleeper. She's an amazing little gal, but she's also a toddler now. So she's just takes a lot of energy. It is the best phase so far and also the most challenging in a number of ways. But I feel very, very lucky to have this amazing child in my life, to be with her, to get to spend so much time with her and still be able to work on my business. So I feel like that's a little update on how things are going. And I want to dive into some questions that have been on my radar for a while. But before we get there, I want to take a little break to hear from one of our sponsors of the show. Hey yoga teachers, we're just taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about Offering Tree. Now, if you've been listening to the show over the last couple of months, the last couple of years, you've heard a lot about Offering Tree. I've shared with you a lot about the features, the pricing, the benefits, and today I want to talk about the education that they offer. And you might be wondering, what are you talking about, Amanda? This is a software company. But one of the things that I love about Offering Tree is that they are offering education for users. And this is not just how to do things on their platform. This is on-demand learning webinars. So Offering Tree does 1 to 2 webinars every single month with amazing yoga teachers, entrepreneurs, and coaches. Some of the people that they have had on the webinars recently are people that will be really familiar to you if you have listened to the podcast. Yoga teachers and business experts like Jules Mitchell, Ashley Hagen, Shannon Crow, Mado Hesselink, Meg Sanjamino, Rachel Scott, and more. Each expert covers a variety of topics that will help you with your yoga business and your teaching. So taking your teaching and your business to the next level. Things like building effective customer relationships, how to create an irresistible email incentive, how to clarify your offering, how to price your services, how to get started as a new yoga teacher, and so much more. If you're curious about this, you can head on over to offeringtree.com/webinars. Here lives all of the recordings for the webinars. If you'd like to learn more about the webinars, we're posting on our Instagram and email list, and Offering Tree is always sharing on theirs as well. So head on over to offeringtree.com and join their email list to learn more, or just bookmark offeringtree.com/webinars, and then you can head on over there and watch the recordings whenever you have a couple of minutes to do some learning for your business. All right, now back to the episode. All right, my friends, let us dive into the first question that has been on my radar for a while. And this is something that somebody asked me many, many moons ago. And it was how to find great people to work with. I think one of the things that has been really great for me in my business has been having a really small part-time team that is worked really well for me. I feel like we've got a really good balance, we've got really good rapport, and things just work really smoothly. And the way in which I found the people that I'm working with was actually through my dear friend, Renee Claire, who is the founder of the Productive Wellnesspreneur. She is also a recruiter. And so her and I sat down back in 2019, kind of the end of 2019. And what she got me to do was outline the things that I didn't want to do in my business. And so I started making a list of the things that, I wasn't excited about, that I would like to pass off to somebody else, that it would be a real blessing to have somebody else work on, maybe things that aren't really in my zone of genius, i.e. the things that I don't do best. And to just start thinking about, how many hours I would want and maybe what this person would look like, et cetera, et cetera. And I think for a lot of people, this creates the job description, and that was kind of the idea of where we were going, but it was actually really amazing because as I did this process, it became really clear to me that I actually already knew the person that I wanted to hire. And I reached out to that person. We had previously worked together in another context. She happened to be available, and I'm super, super lucky that she is still working with me today. And then with podcast editing and production, this has been a bit of a different journey because I started editing my podcast and I did my podcast editing for a number of years, like basically 2016 until 2019. And at that point, my husband was actually doing some freelance podcast editing. And so, we agreed on a rate. I paid him all that type of stuff. It certainly wasn't pro bono just because we're married, but I outsourced that to him. And that was really great. He did that until he took on a different job, which was in a full-time capacity, and he wasn't able to do any more podcast editing. I think that was in the fall of 2021. So he edited my show for about 2 years. And then there was somebody else we knew who had been interested in podcast editing, and we passed that work off to him, and he edited the show until he got a full-time job. And now we have another amazing editor and producer who's working with me that's gone really well. And so basically it started with obviously somebody I know really closely, and then just word of mouth from there. And I feel like this is one of the best ways to hire. I really liked the way that Renee encouraged me to sit down and think about the things that I really wanted somebody else to do in my business. And this was something I'm in a little mastermind group with some lovely ladies. And we were talking about this, like the things that you just really don't want to do that they don't have to necessarily take up that much time, but 5 hours when you can free that up is huge. That's so much time to work like in your business rather than just on the admin tasks, like answering emails or scheduling social media, et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, this was like a huge blessing to be able to just figure this out. But if you're looking for somebody in your business, I would start with thinking about the things that you don't really want to do or that you don't really do well, so that you can focus on the things you do well, which is your zone of genius. And then from there, you can start looking for that great fit. And then another question kind of alongside with this was how to actually work with people on your team, like how to juggle this. And this came up because I was talking with somebody about how when I went on maternity leave, I passed everything off to my assistant, and I completely put my trust in her hands as well as in the hands of the person who edits my show. And they were like, that's a lot to kind of, trust these people with that. But I think for me, we had, years of working together, lots of rapport. I have full trust in that way. And I think it just comes down to creating systems, having good communication, being clear about expectations, et cetera, et cetera. And so it kind of started with getting clear on, her capacity, her availability, what she was able to take on for me, and then starting to write out a list of the things that I did that I was no longer going to be able to do on maternity leave. We also streamlined a number of systems. Like, for example, with booking guests on the podcast, before there would just be emails that would come in, I would look at them, I'd decide if it was a yay or nay. I would write back to them, either sending a booking link or sending like, this isn't a good fit. And now we have an application process, which means people can either get that right from my automated email response, or, my assistant will send out a pretty drafted email that sends them the application. And then at my own time, I can go through that form. I send to her who I want to interview, and then she sends those invites out. Perhaps it's not as streamlined for the person who wants to come on to the show, but it's definitely more streamlined for us. So we kind of looked at the processes, the things I was spending time on, and looked at how we could automate a little bit, how we could streamline a bit. And I think this ultimately came down to me needing to sit down and do a little bit of work so that I could step away, and then also just training, creating videos on the processes that I did that my team didn't know how to do, creating training documents, sitting down and having meetings. And, honestly, what I do is pretty simple. And basically the only things that I wasn't able to hand off were actual like podcast interviews, doing the intros, that type of thing. I kept, relationship stuff with sponsors and whatnot. I still choose the guests, and obviously when I work on clients one-on-one, it's me that they work with and me that they do like the booking and scheduling and stuff with. So those were the main things that I kept on. And yeah, like I said, I think it's just getting clear on what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and then communicating that. And I think ultimately finding people that you work really well with is going to be the key to setting this up in your business and setting it up well. So hopefully that answers that question. I want to take a little pause to hear from one of our other sponsors of the show, and then we'll dive into the next set of questions. Ready to supercharge your career and business success? CoachPals is the ultimate networking platform tailored exclusively for wellness professionals like yourself. CoachPals focuses on empowering connections that truly transform your path. Whether you're a dedicated yoga teacher or an ambitious yoga business owner, they've got you covered with innovative features designed just for you. Let's talk about CoachPal's professional profiles. They're not your typical resumes. They're dynamic showcases of your expertise, experience, and skills, enriched with your wellness passion, journey, and community impact. With testimonials and skill endorsements, your profile becomes a magnetic hub for partners and clients. Imagine having a central space that unites your professional identity, opening doors to limitless opportunities thanks to the power of effective networking. From dream job openings to fruitful partnerships and supportive communities, CoachPals truly has it all. Use code MBOM, that's MBOM, to enjoy your first month free when subscribing to a professional monthly plan. Learn more about CoachPals Pro membership benefits at coachpals.com/memberships. Once again, use code MBOM when you're signing up to get your first month free. All right, now back to the episode. Okay, so one of the things that I get asked all the time, this is by clients, this is by yoga teachers, this is by yoga teachers that I train, is how to navigate money mindset and knowing when to increase prices, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the things that I always recommend clients is to sit down and actually understand their background with money. I call it a money story. And I think this is understanding what you were taught about money. So for me, it's what I was taught by society and the time that I grew up and the area that I grew up in, as well as what I was told by my parents. So the short story of mine is that I was told not to talk about money. And I also grew up with kind of this idea that money could cause a lot of problems. Wanting too much money was selfish. And so I had this kind of weird relationship with money where I didn't talk about it. I knew we needed it. I knew it was like helpful and stuff like that. But it also seemed like if you had a lot of it, that there was kind of greed and stuff that came with it. And obviously wanting to live a more yogic life and become a yoga teacher meant that I didn't want to be selfish or greedy or anything like that. And so I kind of had this blend of discomfort talking about it and then also these kind of misaligned ideas around it. So when I first started teaching yoga, working for myself, it was very awkward to talk about money. It was very awkward to tell people my prices. It was very awkward to increase my prices and feel confident about that. And so a lot of the work that I had to do was on my money story and acknowledging where it came from, what it was, and is it true? And I think that obviously money, how much money you have, how much money you make can be a private thing. We don't need to flash it around, but we do need to be comfortable talking about money to the point where if a client says, hey, can I do a private session with you? You can say, yes, of course, this is how much I charge. And I think that getting comfortable with this has been really key for me to bring clients into my business, whether we're working coaching one-on-one or they're purchasing something from me or they're hiring me to help with a project or something like that. They're always going to ask, how much do you charge? And if I'm like, I don't know, whatever you want to pay, it's going to be super awkward, right? And there might be misalignment in terms of how I feel. But in terms of navigating this, I think that a really great resource and place to start is Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass at Making Money. This is one of the most impactful resources that I have had, that I've come across, that I've found, that I've read myself. One of the things I love about it is that she's got, great personality, humor, wit, all that type of thing. And then she also has a lot of tangible practices in there. And I think it's really beautiful to be able to work through this and to do this work. And I think it makes us a lot more confident as yoga teachers to say, these are my prices, this is how much I charge, and feel good about it and not feel guilty. And I think a good place to start, especially when you're new, is really tuning into how the exchange feels. So especially when we're new, sometimes there's a time and a place for something free, because maybe the exchange is that you're going to get a testimonial or you're going to get feedback, and that's really valuable to you. But I think when we start observing that we don't want to teach that class or we don't want to do that thing, that's when it's not worth it for us. And I was talking with a client about this who was driving really far for a yoga class that wasn't paying very well. And at first she was really excited. And then after a couple of months of teaching, she was like, it just doesn't feel worth it to me. And I feel like that's the moment where we need to acknowledge, okay, the exchange is not here anymore. The balance is not there. So we need to be making more money. Or if we're going to teach classes for this low, we need to be driving less distance because, your time is money, your time is valuable. I also had this same conversation with another client of mine who was saying, she's very busy, her schedule is very packed. She had this private that she was going to, and she's like, I just kind of feel like I don't even want to teach it anymore. And when I asked her how much she was charging, it was quite a low rate. And I was like, well, what rate would feel worth it for you? And so once we talked through that, she was like, okay, I think that asking for more money, telling them I'm increasing my prices would really feel good. And if they don't want to, then I think I'm ready to let it go. And, fortunately, the conversation went really well about raising the prices, et cetera, et cetera. And so now there's this really good balance. And so I would really encourage you to tune in to what's feeling good. So if you're doing something, if you're doing work where it feels like there is resistance or procrastination or resentment showing up, it might be a sign that the energetic exchange, so money in exchange for time and energy and service, is off. So I would really encourage you to tune into that. And at that point, that's the time to ask for more money, increase prices. And if you're really struggling with that type of thing, just know that it gets easier with practice. And also that resource that I gave you guys, You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero, is an amazing, amazing place to start. And of course, if this is something that you want to dive further in, feel free to send me an email. I'm always happy to chat about this. This is even something that I can do a one-on-one call about. I'm always happy to chat about money and prices and that type of thing. This has been a huge journey for me in my own life and business. And so I completely understand the discomfort and awkwardness that can come with it as you're strengthening this muscle and just practicing doing this. So the next question that I have here is how to get more people coming to your classes. And I feel like this is a big question. I almost didn't put it on the list because I'm like, man, we could do like a whole hour-long podcast on this. And really, this is a lot of what we cover in MBO anyways. We cover a lot of this stuff, but I feel like it's worth just talking about this because more and more post-pandemic, I'm seeing yoga teachers who have stepped away from studios or let go a bunch of their studio classes, or perhaps the studios they were teaching at have closed, and they've really stepped into offering their own classes. They've created their own platforms, their own memberships, their own online classes, own in-person classes. And I think this is super awesome. And I think this is a huge, huge, huge silver lining of the pandemic, that yoga teachers have stepped into their power as teachers. I think the downside of this is that it does require you to run a business. And I think that this can be really uncomfortable for some people, and even like out of the wheelhouse for a lot of people. Like there's a lot of people who just were not taught how to do this and they have no idea how to do it. And I think the thing I hear most is, I've created all these things, I've got all these classes, but now I need to get more people to come for it to be worth it. Or I put this stuff out there and there's crickets. What do I do? And this is one of the things that I really, really love to work with people and talk with people about. And so I wanted to dive in just a little bit, like high level overview on it. So I think the first piece of this is understanding who your ideal client is, or your client avatar, really understanding your target market, like who is the person that you ideally want in class. And I want to caveat this with, we don't have to exclude people from classes, because I think that that's one place where we get kind of stuck sometimes. But I think thinking about, like, if you're imagining this class, so maybe your goal is 10 people in the class, if you sit down and you visualize what the class looks like, who is in the class? Like, who are the people that you really want in that class? Picture them. Like, can you see what they look like? Do you have a student you've taught that is kind of the ideal of this? They are at the same level that you like to teach. They're interested in the same things, that type of thing. So you want to think about that. That doesn't mean if somebody who looks different or is different comes to your class, you have to turn them away. Definitely not. And you can always shift this, but we want to get a sense for who our ideal client is. So once you have a sense for that, then you can start looking at how you market to them. So instead of just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing if something sticks with marketing, you can actually get strategic. So say your target market is a woman in their 30s who works part-time and has kids and is really passionate about health and wellness, and they love to do vinyasa yoga classes, they love to hike, they love to go to other workout classes like bar and spin. Then we can start thinking about, where is this person? So where is this person in person in their real life, and where is this person online? So in person, you can start thinking about, in your community, what coffee shops are they going to? Are they going to fitness centers? Maybe because they're quite active, are they going to the chiropractor or physiotherapy to help? Are they going to massages? Is that the type of thing that they like? So you can start thinking about where they would actually be. And this is going to help influence where you start marketing, maybe where you take business cards or posters for your offerings, where you hang them up in town. So instead of going all over town, you can start being really selective about where you go. And then this will also influence your materials. So you think about, who is this person and what is the thing they're struggling with, and how are you helping them to solve that? And so that's a lot of what will influence the copy that you put on posters, the copy that you will have on social media, the copy that you'll have on email newsletters, et cetera, et cetera. You want to talk to this person, directly to this person. So if you met this person in person and you were telling them about your offerings, how would you talk to them in a way that they would understand? That's what you want to do with your marketing. And then you want to think about simultaneously where they are online. So, if they are that group of people that I mentioned, maybe they're on Facebook and Instagram. And so maybe that's where you really focus your marketing efforts, because there's a million platforms that you could be on. And again, we could spend all of our time doing this. So you think about, again, how you want to talk to them. You can use similar copy between in-person marketing materials, online, but get really strategic about where they are. Think about the types of images that would attract them, the types of words that would interest them, and you can start doing that. And so I think once you identify this person, identify what you're offering them, get clear on how you can help them, write your copy, create your marketing materials, and put it out there, you might be surprised when people start showing up, because all of a sudden they know this yoga class is for me. Another thing that I'm really big on, that I've talked a lot about and we've got some good stuff happening with this in this season, is finding a niche. And again, niching can be really intimidating because it kind of feels like a big exclusion, and just choosing one group is not going to be as productive as talking to everyone. But truly finding something that you specialize in is going to be the way that people can recommend you to other people. So for example, I have a client who focuses on moms. She does pre and postnatal yoga and other offerings for people. And so if I have somebody who is pregnant or early postpartum, I would certainly send them her way. Does she offer other yoga classes? Yeah, she does. She does offer other stuff. And that's really great. But I think because she's not in my area, I wouldn't just send anyone to her. But because she has this specialization, I know I can send, my pregnant mom friends or my postpartum mom friends to her online offerings. So that's what we want to think about with niching. And again, at a very high level overview with that. So hopefully that's helpful. And again, if you guys want to dive deeper, of course, lots of episodes of the show to listen to, and definitely something we could chat one-on-one about. So if you're interested, then you can reach out at info@mbomyoga.com. But for now, that wraps up the questions I wanted to talk about. So I want to talk a little bit about this upcoming season. We've got a lot of great episodes. We're going to be running a season till about the end of November. I'm just at the point of deciding, because I've got some extra episodes, when we're going to wrap things up. I was originally thinking right before Thanksgiving, but I think that things are going to go probably until the start of December, which is really exciting. And of course, we'll end this season with a year in review episode, as we do every year. But we've got some returning guests. There's a couple of familiar names that you guys might recognize from previous seasons. I'm really excited to have these people back. We are talking a lot of different things in this season. We've got episodes about studio ownership. We've got episodes about niching, as I mentioned. We've got a really great episode on teaching private yoga or one-to-one yoga, which I'm stoked about because we haven't done an episode on that in a long time. We're talking about gentle yoga. We've got a couple episodes on marketing. We're talking about word of mouth marketing, how to make marketing feel good. We're talking about personal practice and why that's so important as a yoga teacher, as well as program trials. So how to offer betas and program trials to the things that you're offering, as well as the importance of running yoga programs as opposed to just drop-ins. So lots and lots of good stuff. At the end of last season, I alluded to a book project that I'm working on. And so hopefully we'll have more news about that. That's one of the big projects that I have been working on over the last couple of months. So very, very excited to share more about that, but not quite ready to go. So stay tuned. I'll have more info soon. So new episodes kicking off next Monday and for the following couple of months. So really excited to hear what you guys think about these episodes, to dive into all the goodness, and to really end 2023 on a strong note. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this life update and Q&A episode. I hope that you guys are excited to kick off the new season. And as always, thank you so much for being here and thanks for listening. I will see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.